Today we're going to dig into a really fascinating idea. It's the idea that AI isn't just giving us new answers, it's fundamentally changing the problems we're trying to solve. Heck, it's changing the questions we're even allowed to ask.
Look, we all know AI is changing our tools. We see it every day. But what if its biggest impact isn't on the solutions at all? What if it's changing the very nature of our ambitions, our challenges, and our limits? Let's dive into that.
So to really get this, let's start at the individual level. Our first section here looks at how AI is changing the way each of us approaches work and creativity, day in and day out.
For decades, for as long as anyone can remember, the hardest part of any big project was just the execution. The question was always, how do we actually build this thing? It was a resource problem, right? But now, with AI that can generate code and designs and text in seconds, the how is getting easier and easier. The new question, the much, much harder question, is what should we build in the first place? We're shifting from a challenge of technical skill to a challenge of, strategic wisdom.
And this isn't new. Not really. History is filled with examples of powerful tools creating totally new, higher-level problems. The automobile wasn't just a faster horse. It created brand new challenges we'd never thought of, like traffic jams, pollution, urban sprawl. The internet, it didn't just solve messaging, it created the massive problem of information overload and fake news. AI is doing the exact same thing, but it's happening on a cognitive level. It's changing the way we even think about what a problem is.
So this brings us to the core idea of what's being called a phase shift. We're literally leaving an era where our main limitation was resources, time, money, people. And we're entering a brand new era where our biggest constraint is judgment. It's the ability to decide what's valuable, what's true, and what's worth doing when you have almost infinite creative power at your fingertips.
Okay, so now let's zoom out and see how this plays out at an industry level. Because if our individual bottleneck is becoming judgment, the entire tech industry is facing a massive judgment problem of its own. And it's leading them into something you could call the great scaling trap.
Right now, the AI world is completely dominated by one single incredibly powerful idea, the scaling law. The belief is simple. If you want a smarter AI, you just have to throw more data, more computing power, and more electricity at it. Bigger is always better. It has become a massive arms race where the only strategy is brute force.
But this creates a really dangerous situation called path dependency. See, when all the money, all the smartest people, and all the media attention flows into one single approach, in this case scaling, it effectively starves all the other potential paths. Think of it like a river carving a deep canyon. Once that path is set, it's almost impossible to change course. So what if smaller, more efficient, or totally different kinds of AI are actually better? Well, we might never find out, because the scaling path is sucking up all the oxygen in the room.
And the physical cost of this trap is, it's staggering. Just look at this chart. In 2024, US data centers are already consuming 183 terawatt-hours of electricity. But by 2030, that number is projected to more than double to an insane 426 terawatt-hours. That trajectory is just not sustainable. And that massive energy bill comes with a hidden price tag. We are talking about an estimated $140 billion in what's called social cost from carbon emissions by 2030. That's the real-world impact on our environment and on household electricity bills, all of it driven by the single-minded obsession with scale. And here's the kicker. What's most concerning is that this strategy might not even be working that well anymore. Even the insiders, like OpenAI co-founder Ilya Sutskever, are admitting that the easy gains from scaling are hitting a plateau. The industry is doubling down on a path that is showing fewer and fewer returns, which makes this trap even more dangerous.
A perfect way to think about this is the green revolution in agriculture. These high-yield crops saved millions from starvation. It was a huge, huge success. But in the long run, it destroyed crop diversity, making our entire global food supply incredibly fragile and dependent on just a few varieties. The scaling law is our modern green revolution. It's a short-term miracle that's creating a massive long-term systemic risk.
So if the whole industry is locked in this race towards a cliff, what's stopping it from just going right over the edge? Well, this is where we see a really surprising twist on the geopolitical stage, one that's acting as a kind of accidental safety brake.
The situation is what you might call a perfect mismatch. The world's two biggest AI players, the US and China, are locked in a fierce competition. But here's the thing. They each have a fundamental weakness that perfectly counteracts the other's strength. And it's creating this unintentional global slowdown. So let's just break this down. In the US corner, you have abundant resources, the best chips, the most capital, the top talent. But as you can see, the key obstacle is a lack of the top-down social and political will to just deploy it all at maximum speed. Now, China has the exact opposite problem. It has incredible national will and can mobilize resources like nobody's business, but it's being held back by a critical lack of advanced hardware, mostly due to sanctions.
And you can see this playing out right now. In the US, you have fierce local opposition over energy use and environmental impact that has blocked or delayed nearly $100 billion worth of data center projects. Meanwhile, China is scrambling to get its hands on those high-end chips, which are blocked by US sanctions. Each side is effectively hobbled.
So this political chaos, these local protests, the international sanctions, all this messiness isn't a bug. It's accidentally functioning as a feature. It has become a kind of civilizational speed limiter, preventing a single, reckless ideology from just accelerating completely unchecked.
In this chaotic, unpredictable state of affairs, well, it leaves us to a final, more philosophical way of looking at all this. What if we're not in a race at all? What if, instead, we're simply playing in God's casino?
Einstein, he believed in a predictable, orderly universe. But this whole situation we're in suggests another possibility. What if the universe isn't some neat little blueprint? What if it's a cosmic game of chance? And the point isn't to find the single, final answer, but to just enjoy the unpredictable roll of the dice.
This reframes everything. Suddenly, the messy, multipolar gridlock we're seeing, it's not a problem we need to solve. The chaos, the diversity of all these competing ideas and constraints, that is the point. It's the very thing that keeps the game interesting and prevents it from ending too soon.
So when you see it this way, the goal just completely changes. It's no longer about the anxiety of winning some imaginary AI race. It's about finding the most interesting way to keep playing the game. It's about appreciating all this chaos as a source of resilience and novelty instead of some obstacle we have to overcome.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty profound question. If we accept that we're not in some predictable race to a finish line that we already know, but that we're all players in this grand, chaotic game of chance, it changes everything. What then is the smartest way for us to play?